Hi there. Thank you so much for joining me on Ingrid's World. Are you truly a good picture of health? Do you look good on the outside but a mess on the inside? The guests on the show will discuss health and how coaching can move us in a positive direction and be more a true picture of good health. Our guests inspired me, and I hope they will inspire you. Let's welcome to the show Dr. Cynthia Crawford-Green, MD, Cardiologist. Dr. Cynthia Crawford-Green, thank you so much for being here on the show.
And thank you for having me.
Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am from North Carolina and trained at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Bounced around the country a bit and landed here, training in cardiology and focusing on the health of a predominantly urban population.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful, wonderful. So, and your specialty in medicine?
Cardiology.
Cardiology. What made you decide about taking care of our hearts? That's like powerful there.
I wish I knew what was the switch that flipped with that, but I went to the National Institutes of Health and did a medical staff fellowship there and fell in love with the heart and all about it.
Fell in love. So, we hear so much about heart health, and this being February, and we need to love ourselves. What are you seeing that's really we're not doing good to protect our heart? What are some of the things that you're seeing?
Well, the most important thing is the most low-tech thing that we could do.
Ooh.
And that is many of us do not monitor our weight, do not stay on top of blood pressure and diabetes. Unequivocally, I can tell you that were we to pay more attention to achieving the ideal body weight, the
Yes.
blood pressure readings would come down, the cholesterol readings would come down, and diabetes would be much better controlled. And the reason I focus on those is because diabetes and hypertension, particularly in the African American population, are huge risk factors for the development of coronary artery disease, are blockages of the blood vessels in the heart, which lead to high blood pressure, which lead to heart attacks, strokes, and uncontrolled diabetes and blood pressure also lead you to dialysis. So if we were to step all the way back and realize, well, what can we do to try to prevent all of those negative occurrences, one of the most important things would be to maintain an ideal body weight and exercise on a regular basis.
Exercise on a regular basis.
Yes.
So when we talk about exercise, what type of exercise are you speaking about?
Well, I'd like to first say what I'm not speaking about.
All right.
Okay. And the exercise when walking in the mall, when window shopping, or when walking your dog, that's not the exercise that we need.
But that's what I count.
Right, that can be part of it.
Oh, can be part.
Part of it, but you have to have vigorous exercise. The American Heart Association and the American College of Cardiology recommend that for all adults that we should exercise 3 to 5 days per week, 15 to 20 minutes of vigorous exercise. So I like to translate that to you need to be hot, sweaty, and stinky when you finish exercising.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so can't be cute.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
But it'll get us to the cute factor.
Absolutely.
If we exercise.
Absolutely.
What are you seeing as things that we're doing? So one thing is that we're not exercising enough. What
Yes.
other things are making our heart unhealthy?
Well, when we're not exercising enough and not paying attention to a healthier diet, the weight does become an issue. And particularly among African American women, over 60% of African American women are overweight. And that correlates with the onset of maturity onset diabetes, or type 2 diabetes, if you will, that is associated with weight. So if one can control the weight, we will notice an improvement in your blood sugar levels,
Okay.
blood pressure levels, as well as your cholesterol levels, which all will ultimately lead to a healthier heart lifestyle, if you will.
Ah, excellent,
Yes.
excellent.
Because all of those risk factors, high blood pressure, high cholesterol, smoking, all are associated with the development of blockages in the blood vessels in the heart, which lead to heart failure, heart attacks, strokes, and also dialysis.
It's really, very important, and I think it's so fantastic. That's why I really was so happy to know that you could be here on this show, because that's the message that really needs to come out. Because when you're sick, I mean, that's like most important thing, that you have a healthy body and you can enjoy life.
Absolutely.
With you are, and a part of the show is that I want to also share information about what are the warning signals, what are the warning signs that we need to be aware of, because often we hear about heart disease and it being the silent killer, but what are the things that we should just be aware if we see happening to ourselves or our loved ones?
Well, thank you so much for bringing up the moniker, the silent killer. We have been taught for years that hypertension or high blood pressure is the silent killer. My position now, after way too many years of doing this, is high blood pressure or hypertension is not silent.
Oh.
We just choose not to listen to it.
There you go.
So that when patients will come to me, a common complaint of women, oh my God, I have to take care of my husband, I have to take care of the kids, my job is a mess, and I keep getting this awful headache. Every morning I wake up with this headache. Well, that little nagging headache, a sense of not feeling well, those are all signs that your blood pressure could be elevated. So patients often will say, I didn't know I felt so bad until now I feel so good once that blood pressure is brought down. So people think about it, oh, well, everybody has a little pressure and this, but high blood pressure can negatively affect the vascular beds throughout your entire body, including the brain, the eyes, the heart, kidneys, as well as the blockages in the blood vessels in your legs. So it's not just a little bit of hypertension. It is a very serious disease state, which leads to tremendous morbidity and mortality.
Mortality, oh my goodness. So we really need to pay attention to this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things that I tell my patients, and I should listen a little more closely myself, is there's absolutely nothing wrong with being in a single-digit dress size.
Oh, no, we do not go there.
But there are lots of us, there's a lot of resistance in some pockets of our community where that's a problem. But were we to maintain that ideal body weight, stay active, exercise, those joints that bother you and are getting creaky and stiff, they're going to feel better. And it also keeps your mind active. And it helps you to think and remain active and productive. So it is absolutely critical that those low-tech things that I'm discussing, low-tech, the things that we can do for ourselves. We can eat properly. We can exercise. Exercise 3 to 5 days a week. And if you don't have a treadmill, and I can tell you that 98% of my patients who come in who have a treadmill at home, they use it to hang their clothes on it.
No, they don't. I would be one of them. I would be. I think what you're saying is really, to me, the takeaway that I have is that exercise, hot, sweaty, stinky, all right, much as I don't like to, but it makes sense, because when you talk about if you exercise, strong mind, better way to live, no headaches, no icky joints. Dr. Crawford-Green, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. You have shared some amazing tips with us, and I hope all of our viewers have taken this information to heart. Continued success in your wonderful service to our community. You are a jewel.
Thank you.
Our next guest is also a physician who will help us answer the question, how do you get from point A to point B? Welcome to the show, Dr. Colette Edwards. It's a pleasure to have you here.
Thanks so much for having me, Ingrid.
So, you are a doctor, MBA graduate. Also, you're a holistic wellness coach too. Tell us more about yourself.
So, I knew when I was in high school that I wanted to be a physician. But when I went to college, I took an economics class just as part of a broad general education, found that I liked that enough that I then decided that I wanted to get my MBA as well, so that I could do one-on-one interaction with patients, but also I found that I was interested in the much bigger picture. And with regard to coaching, really getting back to that one-on-one, looking at the whole person and helping them to connect the dots to achieve their goals.
Yeah, when I was reading your bio, you're just a highly accomplished, woman. Unbelievable person.
Thank you.
A Harvard graduate. You did what did you do? What studies did you do there at Harvard?
At Harvard, I was a bio major.
Wonderful. So those are, hopefully our bio majors are listening and ears are perking up, So you completed your work at Harvard and then you moved on.
I went to the University of Pennsylvania for med school and I got my MBA from Wharton. I went back and forth for 5 years.
For 5 years. You were certainly committed to that.
I was.
In medicine, what is your specialty?
Internal medicine and gastroenterology.
So you see a lot, really, about the things that are going on inside of us.
Correct.
So you talked about what led you, you were very much interested in doing something, in terms of business. What was like the pivotal moment for you to say, hey, I need to start this type of business?
So I was working at a Fortune 500 company. I had gotten to the point where I had 2 markets that I was covering, and I was also the National Medical Director for Health Disparities. And so as a result, for about 5 years, I was on the road 70% of the time. And it finally reached the point where 5 years was enough of having that experience, and it was time to take a break and do a reassessment. And so I took some time off, and then based on my interest and my skills, I decided to start my own business doing healthcare consulting and also health, wellness, and life coaching.
Health and that life coaching is so important. So what's the name of your business that you have?
Insight MD is the healthcare consulting practice, and a service offering of coaching is called People Tweaker.
Wow. I love when I was talking with you over the phone and we were doing our pre-interview, and you said, Ingrid, we're not broken. And I was like, wow, that's a really, a wonderful concept, because usually you think that you're broken. You go to the doctor, okay, can you fix this?
Right.
Explain what you were talking about.
So coaching assumes that you really are whole and complete as you are. You may want to make some enhancements to your life. You may want to make some changes, but you aren't broken to be fixed. And even if that were the case, only you can fix yourself. It assumes that you know what's going to be best for you and solutions that are really going to work given your whole life, not just one part of it.
Okay. And it's the solutions for you. And I like the fact that we may want to make some changes. Now, when you're dealing with some issues, that we're all confronted, in life, what are some of the tips that you're talking to people about, and how do we move? For instance, for me, I tend to like my really bad thing, and here's my confession.
Okay.
All right. I say yes. When I started my career, I had a boss who said, when you go to the meeting, I want you to sit on your hands, okay?
Right. And not raise your hand.
Raise your hand. Well, here I am, 20 years later.
Right. Still raising your hand.
That's and actually, I really now see it as a problem because it gets in the way of the fun. So how do you kind of like tweak that?
So one of the first things in a coaching session would really be to try to get behind why you are exhibiting the behavior that you want to change. So what's really behind it, and what are you getting out of saying yes all the time? Because the assumption is that people are logical and rational and reasonable, and that even though from the outside it may not make sense, watching you say that you don't want to raise your hand, but see you raise your hand and maybe get stressed from all the commitments that you make.
Yes.
For you, there is a reason behind it, and there's something positive that you're getting out of it, and it's just a question of you're deciding, do the negatives outweigh the positives, and are you ready to make the change? Is it important enough? Do you have the confidence, and are you really ready to make the change yourself?
Good questions, because those are the kinds of questions I need to ask myself. I am on a road for recovery, though, because I was a member of another organization, and they wanted me to be an officer, and I did call for my support. I called a lot of my friends, and I'm like, what do you think about this? And they're like, Ingrid, you're doing a television show. You know you want to do that. I know that they say they need it, and we would love for you to do it, but that gets in the way. And actually, I wound up, first time in my life, I called them back, and I said, thank you so much. I feel honored, but I have to say no.
And how did that make you feel?
Actually, I felt so good when I hung up that phone. I felt so good. But now the question would be, have I learned from then? And I'm trying.
Well, it's little steps at a time, and one of the things that you have pointed out is something that comes up all the time in coaching in terms of, do you have a support system that's working for you to remind you that, yes, you said that you wanted to do what you said you wanted to do. Because sometimes people are doing things for someone else, and why I think that can work in the short term, in the long term for most people, they can't sustain it if they aren't really doing it for themselves as well.
Wonderful. So, okay, so basically, having that support group, and I was always under the impression the support group was kind of, let's say, supporting you, but the support group needs to remind you who you are. Well,
it depends upon what the issue is. So in your particular case, it was important for you to have people that you could go to and ask them what you think, because a lot of people don't have that, or they have people that they go to that may or may not tell them what they need to, right. And so you were lucky enough to have that, and for people to say, that's great, but is this really what you want?
Yeah, in my support group, I had one who said, no, I really don't think you should do it. The other one said, I am like so mad that you're considering it. And you have a dream, and you think that you can do all of this, and that doesn't make sense. So, so that's good. So, some final words about about life coaching, because what you're doing is an amazing service, to us.
So, I think that coaching really helps people clarify what they want or don't want in their lives. It helps them clarify what their values are. It helps them really take time to think about who they are, what the essence of them is, and where they really want to go in life or don't want to go in life, or just take a pause and sit and be still and think about things.
I'd like to thank you, Dr. Edwards, for being on the show. You have provided some excellent information to us.
Thanks so much for having me.
I hope everyone understands and was able to appreciate the awesome coaching and doable tasks that she was able to share with us. Now, I want you to meet another person who I consider another treasure that we have in our community.
Get a job.
Look, it's a giraffe.
I don't see it.
The less art kids get, the more it shows. Are yours getting enough? Art. Ask for more. AmericansForTheArts.org.
Now I want you to meet a person that I consider a national treasure. Photographic portrait artist Joseph Daniel Clipper. Thank you for coming on the show.
Pleasure. My
Joseph
pleasure.
Daniel Clipper.
Thank you.
Well, I'm excited about you being here and because of the wonderful things you have done in your career. Well, first, let's just start about what you do. You brought some things here. Tell us a little bit about your.
Well, I brought some portraits here for you to see and for your guests, your audience. Portraits dear to my heart.
Ah, portraits are dear to
my
your
heart. Been dear to my heart since I was a teenager.
Wonderful.
And that's a long time ago.
My goodness.
Yes, yes.
Why did you start doing this?
Well,
Doing a portrait.
what strikes my mind is that, and I've told this a number of times, I lived at 17th and U. I rode a streetcar. A lot of people they know the streetcars are coming back today. But back in the day,
yes.
I rode the streetcar from 17th and U Streets Northwest to 1st and Florida Avenue Northwest.
All right.
So every day I would pass, and I'm pausing so this can sink in, Skurlock's studio,
Okay.
which was on the south side of U Street, between 9th and Vermont Avenue.
Yes.
And I looked at their portraits in the window, looked to my right every day, Monday through Friday.
I can see it. I can see
at
it.
the portraits in the window.
Uh-huh.
And they were important people,
Okay.
all important people. I didn't know not one of them. But I was a teenager.
Yes.
And that grabbed my heart,
Yes.
grabbed my mind and my heart. So
Yes.
I did that consistently for about 3 or 4 years.
Yes.
And so then in the interim, in the evenings, I would go down to G Street Northwest. Well, down to G Street, there was several studios down there. And I would go and look in their windows.
Yes.
And I did that habitually
Wow.
every day for several years.
Wow.
Enjoyed every moment of it. Some of the people, well, I didn't know them. I didn't know.
Wow.
They looked familiar, but I didn't know them.
You didn't know that?
Yeah. The age difference was so wide.
And you know, in your career, you have done some amazing work and done portraits of amazing people.
Well, what the secret is that I had money back then, and I paid people to tell people that I had done.
Sounds like you were sending out your own tweets.
Yeah. No, I've enjoyed a good career. It's been very pleasurable. I've met a number of people. I never set out to do this.
Yes.
I never knew. You never know that you're going to meet a congressman or a senator.
Yes.
Because you didn't travel in those circles.
Yes.
So, but I did travel in those circles afterwards. After I decided, I didn't plan it. I just did it.
Well, tell us about this wonderful portrait that you have here of Dr. Dorothy Height.
Dr. Dorothy Irene Height. Pleasant lady. Charming. She's what you call charming. She's soft. I mean, you can see her personality, but when you get close enough to talk with her, you can feel it.
Wow.
And I don't know what I would have done differently had I planned this. It just came from the heart. I saw things and I thought of it. I said, let me try to put this together. And in some cases, I did put it together.
You sure did.
Now, I had a situation. I didn't bring the portrait with me, but this was of Dr. King's wife, Coretta Scott King.
Yes.
Didn't plan it. I was in Congress doing someone else's portrait. I know who it was. It was Andy Young.
Yes.
It was Andy, I did Andy Young's portrait, and she was visiting Andy Young.
Yes.
I said, well, why not invite her to step in front of the camera? And she did.
And made it happen.
Made it happen.
Who is this wonderful portrait? Who is this of?
This is the renowned surgeon at Howard University, Dr. LaFall LaSalle.
Excellent, excellent. And our middle portrait?
This is Effie Slaughter-Berry, the wife to the former mayor, Marion Berry.
Wonderful. And this portrait over here?
This is the wonderful Congressman Charles Bernard Rangel from New York. And let me just say one thing about Congressman Rangel.
Yes.
It makes me feel good to have been commissioned to do his portrait 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
Different times, from early 70s when he first came here, up
Yes.
to just several years ago.
My goodness.
Yeah, so it
And
feels
you
good.
have done it 3 times.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Family.
So it sounds like they became family and they loved your work.
Yeah, I saw children grow up. I photographed them early and then later on in life.
One of the things that I also just loved, first I have 2 really important questions I wanted to ask you. You also did a portrait of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, Dr. King, thank you for asking about that, because things in life don't always go as planned, or sometimes you don't have plans. In Dr. King's case, I didn't have a plan to take the portrait of Dr. King. He was out at a church, and keep in mind, Dr. King became more popular. He was popular. I don't want to mislead you. But after we lost him to a tragic shooting, then everything rose higher and higher and higher. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is that it was a pleasure for me to have taken a portrait of Dr. King, but it was not a planned sitting.
And it wasn't a planned sitting.
Wasn't a planned sitting, but that's the best part. When you have things just things in life for you just happen to unfold just so wonderful, and you couldn't plan it better. I mean, no, yes, we'd all like to still have Dr. King here.
Yes. So you are our national treasure because of the wonderful work that you have done. For those who are aspiring to be the next Joseph Daniel Clipper, what's the advice?
The advice is be yourself.
Okay.
Not just working to create portraits with your hand and your mind, but put your heart and your love and your caring and your sharing, your appreciation for the person that you are taking the portrait of.
I noticed that, and it's really, you really live that, because as you describe each portrait, they're close friends of yours. Well, I'd like to thank you for being on the show. You are a treasure, and I just feel privileged that you brought them here to the studio to share with our audience.
Thank you.
Thank you
My
so
pleasure.
much, Mr.
Thank you so
Clipper.
much.
It gives me chills that we had a show that had a photographic portrait artist that actually did a portrait of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in person. Let me pause for a second. Let me take this in. Wow. Joseph Daniel Clipper, and I have to thank you again for being here on this show. I'd like to thank all of our guests for coming on the show, because weren't they amazing? I enjoyed putting the show together because I had an opportunity to bring special people that come into my world and share them with you. So here's my quote I want to share with you. Don't be afraid of change. In fact, Albert Einstein said, a measure of intelligence is the ability to change. So for show information, please see ingridsworld.org. And I thank you for watching.